7 Mindset Shifts That Change Millions, The Dark Wisdom of Machiavelli. There is a book that has been banned, burned, and condemned by popes, kings, and governments for over 500 years. A book so dangerous that simply owning it was once considered evidence of moral corruption. A book that Napoleon kept beside his bed, that Queen Elizabeth studied in secret, that every powerful person in history either read, or wished they had. That book is The Prince by Niccolò Machiavelli. And here is what almost nobody tells you about it. Machiavelli was not teaching people how to be evil. He was teaching people how to see clearly, how to stop being naive, how to navigate a world that does not reward goodness alone, a world that rewards preparation, perception, and the courage to think in ways that make comfortable people deeply uncomfortable. The mindset shifts inside that book did not just shape one person. They shaped civilizations. They influenced how empires were built, how wars were won, how leaders survived when everything around them was collapsing. And they are just as relevant today, in your career, your relationships, your ambitions, as they were in 15th century Florence. Today, we are going to walk through 7 of those mindset shifts. Not to make you cold, not to make you ruthless, but to make you clear-eyed, grounded, and genuinely powerful in a world that will exploit your innocence if you let it. If this kind of thinking speaks to you, subscribe to this channel right now. Every week, we bring you the darkest, deepest, most powerful wisdom from history's greatest minds. This is the channel for people who want to think at a different level. Let's begin. The life that made the mind. Before we enter the 7 mindset shifts, you need to understand who Machiavelli was. Because his philosophy did not emerge from a comfortable armchair, it was forged in suffering. Niccolò Machiavelli was born in Florence in 1469, during one of the most politically turbulent periods in European history. He rose to become a senior diplomat and advisor in the Florentine Republic, a man of genuine skill, genuine service, and genuine belief in the power of good governance. He traveled across Europe. He met kings and popes. He negotiated treaties and studied power at the highest levels. And then everything was taken from him. When the Medici family returned to power in 1512, Machiavelli was immediately removed from office. He was accused of conspiracy, thrown into prison, and tortured on the strappato, a device that dislocated the shoulders. He maintained his innocence throughout. He was eventually released, but his career was destroyed. He was exiled to a small farm outside Florence, forbidden from entering the city that had been his entire world. It was in that exile, stripped of power and position, that he wrote The Prince. Not as an abstract exercise in political theory, but as the honest, unflinching conclusions of a man who had watched power operate at its most naked, and survived it. That context matters. Every mindset shift we are about to discuss was paid for in real suffering. Real observation. Real consequence. This is not theory. This is the distilled experience of a man who sat at the table with the most powerful people in the world, and then had everything taken away and lived to write about what he learned. Mindset Shift 1. Stop wishing the world were different. Start seeing it as it is. This is the foundation of everything Machiavelli ever wrote. And it is the shift that most people spend their entire lives refusing to make. Machiavelli opened The Prince with a statement so radical it still shocks people today. He said he would write about the effectual truth of things, not the imagination of them. Not how the world should be, not how we wish it were, but how it actually is, right now, In front of us he wrote that many have imagined republics and principalities which have never been seen or known to exist in reality. And the gap between how one lives and how one ought to live is so wide, that anyone who abandons what is done for what ought to be done will bring about his ruin rather than his preservation. Read that slowly. He is not saying morality is worthless. He is saying that a person who operates only on ideals, who refuses to see reality as it is, will be destroyed by the very world they are trying to improve. Think about how many people you know who live in the gap between what is and what ought to be. They are perpetually frustrated, perpetually disappointed, perpetually surprised when people behave selfishly, when institutions fail them, when good intentions produce bad outcomes. They keep expecting the world to behave according to their values, and the world keeps refusing. Machiavelli's first mindset shift is a form of radical honesty. See what is actually in front of you. See people as they actually are, not as you wish them to be. See systems as they actually function, not as they claim to function. And from that clear-eyed vision, build your strategy. This is not cynicism. Cynicism is a form of bitterness. It sees the worst and stops there. Machiavelli's realism is something different. It sees clearly, and then acts wisely. Mindset shift 2. Fortune favors the prepared, not the lucky. Machiavelli had a complicated, fascinating relationship with the concept of fortune. He personified it, often as a woman, as was common in Renaissance thinking, wild, unpredictable, impossible to fully control. He wrote that fortune controls half of our actions. Half, but only half. The other half, he argued, belongs entirely to us. This is one of the most liberating ideas in The Prince, hidden beneath language that sounds fatalistic. Because what Machiavelli is actually saying is this: the world is unpredictable. Chaos is real. Things will happen that you did not plan for and cannot control. Accept that, but within that reality, the person who has prepared, who has built strength, built alliances, built skill, built resources, will bend fortune to their will far more often than the person who simply waits and hopes. He used the image of a river. When the weather is calm, everyone can cross the plain freely. But when the floods come, the prepared person, the one who built dikes and embankments during the calm, is protected. The unprepared person is swept away. Both faced the same flood. Only one was ready. This is the second mindset shift. Stop waiting for the right moment to arrive fully formed. Stop telling yourself that when circumstances change, you will be ready. Start building the dikes now. Start acquiring the skills now. Start strengthening the alliances now. Because fortune does not reward the passive. It rewards the prepared. And when the flood comes, and it will come, the person who prepared will not merely survive it. They will use it. They will see the chaos as an opportunity that their unprepared competitors cannot access. That is not luck. That is construction. That is the Machiavellian mind at work. Mindset shift 3. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. This is the most famous, most misunderstood line Machiavelli ever wrote. And because it has been misunderstood for 5 centuries, most people draw exactly the wrong lesson from it. Machiavelli did not say fear is better than love. He said this: it would be best to be both feared and loved. But when you cannot have both, when the world forces you to choose, fear is the safer foundation. Because love depends on the other person's goodwill, which they can withdraw at any moment. Fear depends on something more consistent, the human instinct for self-preservation. He wrote that men will break bonds of love whenever it serves their interests, but they hesitate to break bonds of fear, because the punishment is immediate and real. Now here is what almost no one discusses. Machiavelli immediately followed this by saying that a wise leader never generates hatred. Fear, yes. Hatred, never. Because a feared leader maintains order. A hated leader plants the seeds of their own destruction. The line between fear and hatred is respect. A person can fear you and still respect you, even admire you. A person who hates you will wait, patiently, for the moment to take you down. The mindset shift here is about taking your own reliability seriously. Stop building your entire reputation on being liked. Being liked is fragile. People who like you will abandon you the moment liking you becomes inconvenient. Instead, build a reputation for consistency, for following through, for meaning what you say and saying what you mean, for being someone whose presence carries weight. That is what Machiavelli actually meant. Not cruelty, not intimidation, but the quiet, unshakable authority of someone who does not need approval to act, and whose actions consistently prove them worthy of being taken seriously. Mindset shift 4. The wounds you inflict must be swift, the benefits you give must be slow. This is perhaps the most psychologically sophisticated teaching in all of The Prince. And it is one that almost every successful leader, negotiator, and strategist has internalized. Whether they read Machiavelli or not, he observed that injuries should be done all at once, so that, being tasted less, they offend less. Benefits should be given little by little, so that the flavor of them may last longer. Think about what he is describing. Pain, delivered quickly and completely, allows recovery. The human mind can process a sharp, sudden wound far better than it can endure prolonged, repeated suffering. When you must cause disappointment, when you must say no, must cut something, must make a hard call, do it once, cleanly, and completely. Do not drag it out. Do not give people false hope and then take it away again and again. That slow drip of disappointment destroys trust and breeds resentment in ways that a single, honest, swift decision never does. Benefits, on the other hand, should be distributed over time. Not because you are withholding generosity, but because the human mind habituates. A large gift given all at once is remembered for a day. A series of smaller gifts, thoughtfully spaced, builds a sustained sense of goodwill that outlasts any single gesture. The mindset shift here is about timing as strategy. You are not just thinking about what you do, you are thinking about when you do it, and how the sequence shapes the experience of everyone around you. This is emotional intelligence at its most precise. It is the difference between a leader who is genuinely trusted and one who is merely tolerated. Apply this everywhere, in how you give feedback, in how you structure relationships, in how you build teams, close deals, and handle conflict. Swift honesty when things must change. Sustained generosity when things are going well. That rhythm, practiced consistently, creates an atmosphere of both trust and motivation that most people never manage to build. Mindset shift 5. Never rely on the goodwill of others for your survival. Machiavelli was relentless on this point. He returned to it again and again throughout The Prince, in different forms and different contexts. And every time, the message was the same. The moment your survival depends entirely on someone else's willingness to protect you, you have already lost. He distinguished sharply between what he called one's own arms, your own resources, your own skills, your own power base, and mercenaries. Hired forces. External support. He did not condemn seeking allies or building relationships. He condemned dependency. He wrote that a prince who stands only with the arms of others stands neither firm nor safe. In his own life, he had seen this truth demonstrated with brutal clarity. The Florentine Republic he served fell not because it lacked good governance but because it lacked the independent strength to defend itself when powerful outside forces moved against it. Goodwill was not enough. Alliances were not enough. When the moment of crisis came, those who had smiled and nodded in peaceful times simply stood aside. The mindset shift is this: build your own. Before you need it not out of paranoia, but out of wisdom. Build skills that no one can take from you. Build financial resilience that does not depend on any single employer, patron, or partner. Build a reputation that is yours alone, not borrowed from the institution you work for, the relationship you are in, or the title you currently hold. Because titles change, institutions fall, relationships end, and when they do, the person who built their own foundation stands. Everyone else starts over. Machiavelli had to start over. He did not want that for you. He wrote The Prince so you would not have to learn this lesson the way he did, in a prison, on a torture device, with everything already gone. Mindset Shift 6. Appear virtuous, but never be imprisoned by virtue. This is the teaching that gets Machiavelli condemned in almost every era. And it is also the teaching that, understood properly, contains some of the deepest practical wisdom he ever produced. He wrote that a prince should appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, and religious, and should also be capable of being the opposite whenever necessity demands. He was not advocating hypocrisy for its own sake. He was making a sharp distinction between performance and imprisonment. A person who is rigidly, inflexibly bound to any single virtue, even a genuine one, will eventually be destroyed by it. The world is not consistent. Situations change. What loyalty demands in one moment may be catastrophically wrong in another. What honesty produces in a trusting environment may produce ruin in a hostile one. Virtue applied without judgment is not virtue, it is naivety dressed in moral clothing. Machiavelli admired virtuous behavior genuinely. He believed in justice, in good governance, in the dignity of human life. What he opposed was the refusal to think. The person who says, "I will always be honest, no matter what," has surrendered their judgment to a rule. And rules, applied mechanically, without wisdom, without context, without understanding the stakes, can cause tremendous harm. The mindset shift is this: develop genuine character, but do not outsource your thinking to your character. Let your values guide you, but keep your mind engaged. Ask, in every situation, what wisdom actually requires, not just what a rule requires. That distinction is everything. It is the difference between a person of rigid principle and a person of genuine wisdom. Machiavelli wanted you to be the latter. So did Aristotle. So did Marcus Aurelius. They just said it in ways that made people more comfortable. Mindset Shift 7. The greatest danger is neither your enemy nor your circumstances, it is your own complacency. This is the mindset shift Machiavelli saved for last. And in many ways, it is the one that speaks most directly to the world we live in today. He wrote that the one who adapts their policy to the times will flourish, and the one who does not will fail. He observed that the ruin of most princes came not from great external forces but from their own unwillingness to change. Their circumstances shifted. The world around them evolved. And they continued doing what had worked before, because it had worked before, because change was uncomfortable, because the habits of success are always harder to break than the habits of failure. Think about how many people you have watched do exactly this. A business that dominated its industry for decades and then refused to adapt when the landscape changed. A relationship that worked beautifully for years and then silently calcified because both people stopped growing. A career built on skills that the world slowly stopped rewarding, and a person who kept polishing those skills rather than building new ones, because the old ones were familiar, because the old ones had once been the answer.